sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
It is hotter than the devil's asshole up in here. I swear to God, I am sweating like a Baptist in church. It's so hot, Tim's hemorrhoids turned into pepperonis. They were so well cooked, you could serve them on a pizza.
Oh my God.
It's so hot, the United States has been annexed by hell. Seriously, it's so hot, Henry Cavill should come to my house, take off all of his clothes, and run naked through the sprinklers in the front yard. Well, what I actually mean there is that he should be taking a shower in my bathroom with me watching with lube and a great big smile. I guess what I'm trying to say, sinners and saints, it's hot as fuck outside, and I love it. I would rather have this kind of heat any day than that fucking snowstorm and freezing cold temperatures we had back in January. I live for summer. So now that you all know that I'm hot, how y'all doing? You feeling well? You feeling sexy? You looking good? You feeling pussy, wookie, dookie, nookie, bookie, wookie? Yeah, that's becoming irritating, me saying that, isn't it? I'm sorry. I don't know. It's just a thing right now. It's just coming out of nowhere, and I like it. And no, I'm not drinking, and no, I'm not high. That will happen a little later on. I am getting ready for happy hour shortly, and I'm excited tonight for happy hour. We're coming up on our Pride festivities this coming weekend, and I always love that. Hanging out with the community, watching some great bands, checking out a few shops and things, eating some good food, sucking some good dick, eating some good ass. I'm kidding, of course. You can't do that in public anymore. Jesus is watching, and the Republicans will arrest you and put you in Guantanamo Bay. Speaking of dicks, have you seen these news stories about scientists discovering microplastics in human penises?
What?
Holy shit. It's kind of fucked up. Thanks to my boys at the Watch Your Spaghetti Policy podcast, I'd heard about it, and so I went and looked up a couple of articles regarding the situation and looking at the studies, and I was just like, holy fuck. Microplastics, if you don't know, are like polymer fragments that can range from less than 0.2 of an inch, about 5 millimeters, down to 1/25,000th of an inch, or 1 micrometer. Anything smaller than this is considered a nanoplastic. These things form when larger plastics break down, either by chemically degrading or physically wearing down into smaller pieces. Some minuscule particles can literally invade individual cells of the body in major organs, and there's increasing evidence that more and more of them are being found in our bodies. The lead author of the study used a previous study that found evidence of microplastics in the human heart as a basis for doing this research on the human penis. The samples were taken from participants who had been diagnosed with erectile dysfunction and had been in the hospital to undergo surgery for penile implants to treat their condition. This was at the University of Miami between August and September of 2023. The samples were analyzed using chemical imaging, which showed that 4 of the 5 men had microplastics in their penile tissue. 7 different types of microplastics were detected. According to the researchers, they feel that more study is needed to identify whether the microplastics are linked to erectile dysfunction, and they say that there's more work that needs to be done to identify whether the microplastics are the cause of these patients' erectile dysfunction. As for wider implications of the findings, the author hopes to create, he says, more awareness about the presence of foreign bodies within our organs, and hopefully lead to more research surrounding the topic of microplastics in the body. I didn't know this either. According to previous research, they found that 1 liter of bottled water, the equivalent of 2 standard-sized bottled waters, contain an average of 240,000 plastic particles. The author of the study says that we need to be mindful about consuming water and food from plastics, like plastic bottles and plastic containers. We need to limit their use until more research can be done to make sure that this isn't really a danger or a toxin to our body. But I have to say, the thought of having microplastics in my body doesn't make me feel good at all. I would think any foreign substance in our body is dangerous, but, I'm not an expert. And as for me, it's got me concerned because I do use plastics to microwave foods, reheat them. I drink bottled water, but now I'm going to have to think long and hard about using these containers and things. The study's author suggested that we need to reduce our plastic usage by using stainless steel and glass containers whenever possible, especially when we don't know what the long-term damage these microplastics in our body could lead to. For me, it's like, is this just one more sign of humanity destroying ourselves? Probably. Who knows? But I just thought it was shocking when I read the study. And the first thing I thought, having read it, was like, damn, now I got to worry about when I suck dick, my mouth turning into Tupperware. All kidding aside, I thought it was an interesting subject that I should bring up on the podcast. So the more you know, the better you are. Let's stay informed, people. Rock me, Amadeus. Plastic in our dicks aside, I do try to seek out some positives when it comes to climate change and our planet's environment being turned upside down. One of the pluses that I find for me that is personally rewarding is watching all the hot men jogging in nothing but a pair of shorts. The other day, I was walking downtown and I was kind of caught up in my music, in my earbuds and everything, listening to that. And I was crossing one of the bridges and I suddenly hear, "Coming up behind you." Of course, it made me jump and I moved over and he breezed by me, all wet with sweat, glistening down that muscle back into those fine, tight shorts. And I thought for a second, maybe I should have just stood in place and he could have just slammed into my rear end. That would have been a nice detour. I mean, he was already lubed up, so let's just get it on. I do think it's a very important subject for us guys to talk about. Erectile dysfunction, not getting hard. All of us, I'll be the first one to put my hand up. We all, at some point or another, are on the short end of the stick, so to speak. A little floppy and not stiffy. How badly do you take that when you, every once in a while, can't get it up? Does it really assault your manhood, the way you feel about yourself? Do you beat yourself up over it? I don't know if you all have talked to your doctor about any issues you might have, but I'm really lucky that I can talk to my doctor about all these kinds of things. And while he also takes a scientific approach, he also talked about the emotional side and the intimate side of sex. And he says that, we'll do tests and things if you think you need tests, but there are also ways to be intimate and loving with your partner that doesn't necessarily require you to have a hard-on. Of course, if you're a top and you can't get it up, I guess that would be an issue with your partner if your partner is a bottom and likes to get slam fucked all the time. But there are so many different ways that we can have sex. I know it just takes communication between you and your partner, but what about us guys like me? I'm an oral guy. I love oral sex. Obviously, as much as I talk about sucking dick, obviously I do. If I'm a person like that who doesn't really get totally into anal, where does that leave me? Do you think that sexual issues are what are the primary reason that people break up? I don't know. I guess it could be, but if you love someone, would that really matter? I know that for myself, those times when maybe Mr. Happy isn't so happy, I am more than satisfied by giving pleasure to the other person or persons. I don't always have to have a raging heart-on and an orgasm to be satisfied. Have we talked about this before? We probably have, but can you ever talk too much about sex? I don't think so. But how does it affect you? Is it really a primary issue with you and your relationships? I just wonder, I always, when I'm watching porn, I think about, some of them, the bottoms that are in some of these scenes that I watch. I've noticed that, they're getting plowed by 3, 4, 5, 6, 38 guys. And a lot of times they don't have a heart on. In that situation, do you feel like as a partner, if the one you're with doesn't have a heart on or have an orgasm, do you feel like you failed? I personally think you should never judge yourself that way. I think if the person is satisfied, has an orgasm or not, it's about open communication. I guess though it would suck too to have somebody say, I promise it's not you. I'm just really tired. I had too much caffeine. A corn cob is stuck in my ass. It could be a multitude of things that could cause you not to have a boner. But that comes back to the male ego again. Like I said, men are pigs, and we want to believe that we're this macho alpha male who can get anybody off at any time. And I had a guy recently tell me, he was trying to seduce me, whatever, and he told me, he says, I can get you off with my mouth in less than 10 seconds. And I kept a straight face, and I just said, that's nice, but no, you can't. I have to have some things happening. In the words of Margaret Cho, I'm going to need you to jiggle the handle a little bit longer than 10 seconds. I have a feeling that this could be the primary issue with a group of men that call themselves incels. Incel is short for involuntarily celibate. I don't know if you've heard about this, and I didn't really know about it until my friend Jacob brought it up, and I saw a horrific, crazy story of an incel murdering a young girl. But from what I understand, an incel is a man who does seem to hate women a lot, but basically they believe that they have a right to have sex and women should provide them with sex, whether the woman likes it or not. I have to think that maybe they have a lot of microplastics in their penis. Maybe they do have ED, and it makes them so bitter that they declare themselves an incel and become a member of the He-Man Woman Haters Club. Such bitterness, all due to this floppy organ that's between our legs. The more and more that we talk about stuff like this, the more and more I believe that Freud was right, But is sex for us men such a cornerstone of our lives that we don't feel like we're a man unless we can, quote unquote, perform at a specific level? How do we define that level? I guess if your partner is screaming in ecstasy, is that right? Love, lust, passion, and ecstasy? Or are we just hung up on what we think the definition of pleasure should be? Come on, guys. If you can't satisfy someone with your mouth, you may just need a little more practice. It's not all about the dick going into a hole somewhere, is it? Well, maybe it is. But I guess there's an old saying, too, about talk is cheap. And actions speak louder than words. And there I go myself, being all judgy, right? How do I know how good you are? Or what is good, what is bad? I've never been in your mouth. Well, not all of you, anyway. Oh, we're being a little bad boy today, aren't we? Go figure. But there are all kinds of ways. I don't know about you all, but armpits. Oh my God. I would have never guessed that was an erogenous zone. But for me, holy shit, it can really turn me on. And I think I mentioned before, the toe sucker, I was just horrified at first. But when he started doing it, I was like, damn, That's a big turn on too. Oh, something just occurred to me. I once was, well, I had hooked up with this guy, and it was nice enough that we kind of decided to start dating. And that lasted about, I don't know, 12 days, maybe. But he was into like phone sex, and not just regular phone sex between me and him, but there was there was one night we were having sex, and his phone rang, and he answered it. And it was like a friend of his that he had hooked up with. And his friend wanted to listen in to me fucking him. And for some stupid reason, I agreed to do it. I just was like, what am I thinking? Anyway, my quote unquote boyfriend handed me the phone. And as I'm plowing him, I'm on the phone talking to this guy who's like, tell me what you're doing. Are you doing this? Have you shoved it all the way in? You know, I can hear him groaning in the background. Is he liking it or is he uncomfortable? And I'm like, you are throwing me totally off my fucking rhythm here. How the hell am I supposed to deal with this? That's something that's supposed to be enjoyable for me when you are getting off on it just by listening. I accidentally, wink wink, disconnected the call. And the bastard had the gall to call back again. Can you picture this? But, you know, it was just his thing, and I thought I could go along with it, but I realized I couldn't. Once again, it's one of those things that this guy got off on that you just never know what people are into. What I'm getting at is there's all kinds of ways, and there could be some people that none of us could satisfy. I mean, there are certain porn stars, I'm sure, that are so used to a level of sexuality that it would be hard to match that. Not that you should. I mean, when it comes to sex, it is your own expression, is it not? And I think that if you have someone that you vibe with on deeper levels, that all falls into place. But here I am telling you your all's business. Whatever gets you off. Whatever doesn't, doesn't. And that's the way it is. I would just hate to think that you have a great relationship and you would throw it away because you feel like the sex isn't good enough. Because I got news for you, honey. At some point, the sex fades, and you better have more to your relationship than that. But there I go again, judging everybody, don't I? Well, maybe I just need a spanking. Or, after thinking about this microplastics in our dicks thing, I think maybe I need to go into that field. Maybe I should be a dick inspector to see if all of you have plastic in your manhood. Granted, it's up close and personal, but I'm willing to make that sacrifice. And if that sacrifice entails licking your armpits, your nipples, and making out and getting off, I'm all for it. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Alan After Dark. I hope you've had fun, have been entertained, and overjoyed at learning about microplastics in your dick. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon. Stop Project 2025.